Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode number 111 today for the Japanese Grand Prix Season 6. If you guys did miss the previous one, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one at the Singapore Grand Prix, and that was quite a chaotic one. Obviously, we had a very good strategy in the end that paid out for us, and it was unfortunate for the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, who went up in an engine failure, if you do not see, but the episode was pretty crazy with that massive crash with Lance Stroll and the Williams car, unfortunately, that we weren't caught up in, obviously, anywhere near that. But Singapore once again delivering with the safety car madness. But it means going into then this Japanese Grand Prix in the remaining 4 episodes and rounds, I think it is, of this season, it's maybe looking like a 2-horse race. But the thing is, Ferrari are always good around Suzuka. And also we have the added caveat of this season, remember, we did not have an Australian Grand Prix, and we have an extra circuit. We have the USA Grand Prix next episode, which we haven't had in 3 seasons, I think. So it's that's going to be a big question mark of I have no idea how certain teams are going to look around there. Maybe, you know, with the back straight, you know, you got to think Racing Point would be strong around there, but Ferrari historically on this game have been strong around Suzuka, Mercedes as well, I guess. So it's going to be a tough order, and maybe Leclerc can bounce back a little bit from that DNF. And I feel like sometimes with the AI, they do bounce back very well from those DNFs. Equally though, he could now be losing momentum, and as I said in the last episode, that could have been the end of his title fight. So let's see, but it's still myself and Gasly very close together in the standings, and we go into Suzuka then ready for qualifying. No rain involved on Saturday, but there is some forecast for rain, I can tell you, on Sunday, so that's going to be quite tricky once we get to race day. But first and foremost, just have to try and qualify as high as we can as per usual on this Saturday. But it's very much crunch time now in this season, so the pressure is that little bit higher now on these qualifyings, and the pressure will be higher in the race to try and keep up what it has been, you know, to be honest, let's be real, a very decent, consistent season for myself. I think one of the best seasons we've had in a while, and obviously the car has been really brilliant. It's been very quick. Obviously, Russell showed that off as soon as he comes into the team. You know, he's been so good in qualifying, so good in the races, and so it very much showed the kind of lack of potential Hamilton was showing us in the kind of first half of this season. But obviously, anything can happen in Formula 1, and we've got to see Gasly's been as consistent as me. You know, he's been there, you know, either one place behind me or one place ahead of me, so we've got to watch out for that. But at the moment then, qualifying 1, kind of the usual pattern. I'm very slow in that first part of qualifying. We get through the session though, that's all that matters in Q2, and I'm sure we'll speed up. But the McLaren's looking pretty quick in Q1, we'll see. Ferrari not too hot, but they did look a bit quicker there in Q1 compared to Mercedes than they maybe did around Singapore. So let's see how this shapes up now in the second part of qualifying. This is where it all matters in terms of the top 10 shootout, maybe where a disaster could be found for 1 or 2 unlucky drivers, really. They get knocked out of the top 10 when they're trying to aim for it in their usual kind of, you know, runner in the last shootout. As we go across the line for us, we're ahead of Russell. Russell opts for the medium tyre, and by the end of it, we do make it through. Russell just about makes it through in P9, and he is the only man who opted for the medium tyre. Now, usually, you know, when he did this at Hungary, I thought that was a genius tactic. Around Suzuka, I'm not too sure, because the tyre wear levels should be fine, I feel, to do a one-stop from soft to hard tyres, especially with some rain on the way as well. I don't know if that's maybe going to be the best call, and once again, one of the Racing Points is unable to make it, and once again, it's actually Alexander Albon that gets knocked out. Even though we've seen him have some fantastic races, he just can't seem to qualify. His AI is just very poor at 1-lap pace, but we know how good he is in the race, so I'm sure he'll be coming through. Let's see, I would expect maybe Red Bull to be a little bit stronger here than they maybe have at the previous races, like they were at Singapore almost, because you've got this first sector, which is, you know, very dependent on downforce, but then I guess you've got sectors 2 and 3 to kind of lose some time in the chassis and the engine department. As we come through now, this first flyer then in the top 10 shootout across the line, and it's P4 at the moment, down to P6 by the time we start our second flyer, behind both Mercedes, both Ferraris, I think, because Giovinazzi's ahead of me, and I think Leclerc is at the sharp end with George Russell maybe as well. So we have to really try and pull our finger out here in this second part of qualifying. We're down to P7 now as other people go quicker. P9 even. We do gain, though, about 2 to 3 tenths at the end of that lap, and that's enough to get us back up into P5, which is disaster averted. P5 not too bad, I would say, for me around a circuit like this. But what did I say? I mean, to be fair, that's not even Ferrari being good. That's Leclerc bouncing back in some style, because look at the deficit that Giovinazzi has. That's not even the Ferrari car being that great. That's just Leclerc pulling out the bag for a fantastic pole position, and it's Leclerc and Russell once again on a front row. They're making a habit of that, those two as a pairing. Russell in our other side of the car, on the other side of the garage in second place there. Gasly and Verstappen block out the second row, so the Mercs looking strong as a unit. So that's a little bit worrying for us, but hopefully, as per usual, our race pace can be a little bit better, and we can hopefully maybe not lose too many points if we are to lose points to Gasly. But obviously the aim would be trying to overtake him and then try and get on towards that podium. Obviously we've had many of them this season, and it'd be great to get back on it. But with some rain on the way, maybe in the race at some point as well, could be quite a spicy one. Let's go to the grid.
Welcome along then to the magnificent Suzuka International Circuit, a stone's throw away from Issa Bay in the beautiful Japanese countryside. What surprises lie in wait for us today in the Japanese Grand Prix? A lap of this historic racetrack covers 3.6 miles, and it's the only time during the season that we race on a figure-of-8 racetrack. The drivers can expect some intense G-forces through the 18 corners on offer here as they experience some of the highest average apex speeds on the Formula One calendar. And keep an eye out for overtakes going into the final chicane. Anthony Davidson is alongside me as usual for the race today. Let's talk briefly about Esteban Ocon. That was a great win in the last race. Can they keep that momentum going this weekend?
It's always nice to come into a Grand Prix weekend on a high, but your expectations are based much more on your practice and qualifying runs. So it's the momentum from those sessions that they'll be hoping to carry into the race today.
Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, just ahead of George Russell, who starts this event from P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Gasly, Verstappen, the owner driver, and Norris, De Vries, Giovinazzi, Ocon, and Alexander Albon, Sainz, Ricciardo, Valtteri Bottas, and Kvyat, Aitken, Giotto, Kevin Magnussen, and Mick Schumacher, Stroll, Latifi, Hamilton, and Nobuharu Matsushita. Now, it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
So as we come onto the starting grid then, as I said, with the comment about George Russell being on the medium tyre in Q2 and therefore starting on that compound, you can see the tyre wear levels are a lot lower around here at Suzuka. And even though that we have had some very high tyre wear in this Season 6 for some reason, I still think it should be a comfortable one stop here. We have seen the two stops be somewhat effective around this circuit, I will admit, but the difference is this time we know that there's some rain on the way. We've got a heavy rain indicator right at the end, which means we definitely should get at least intermediates, that means, by the end of the race. So it's going to be worth to have track position of being on the hard tyres. Even though I'm not a massive fan of them, I can see long term for this entire race with rain pretty much guaranteed, I would say. I think it's going to be better to try and long out the first stint on the soft compound tyre. Easier said than done, because Sector 1 can be very grueling on those tyre temperatures, but I guess that's the big challenge of the race today, and then just obviously trying to get a good start here and hopefully looking to at least split the two Mercedes cars into turn one and see what we can do versus our main championship rival, Pierre Gasly. And who knows, Leclerc, he's up there on pole. You know, he's not mathematically out of it yet, so if he was to go on to win this race, he would still be probably back in the championship fight. So never say never. Let's see how this goes. We've only got 4 races to go then until the end of the season. Suzuka is usually a very tasty one. Here we go to fire red light, and we're underway, and it's a shocking start for George Russell and a great one for us. He's on the mediums, and it's showing that harder compound tyre. We go around the outside there. We managed to jump Verstappen as well as he got held up behind Russell, and it's a fantastic start for myself and Pierre Gasly as we jump Russell up into P2 and P3 respectively. Leclerc still leads the way, and surprise, surprise, it's the usual suspects. The top 3 in the championship are the top 3 here in the race, not in the same particular order, but they're here. Leclerc in first place, Gasly second, myself in third, and wow, you saw there, that was the difference between mediums and softs around Suzuka. Russell absolutely went nowhere off the lights, got bogged down so much, and so that means we're already in an awesome place in this race, in a podium spot. 25 laps to go though, still plenty of time for them to attack us from behind, but at the moment as it stands, we're looking forwards and looking to try and take on Pierre Gasly as we go to the inside, but just don't have the overspeed to really send it to the inside there. Turn 1 in Suzuka. Really, ideally, you want to try and actually overtake on the outside, on the racing line, and you can see there, I actually make a mistake then in Sector 1 as we get a tire on the grass, so losing some composure, just showing how much you really have to be absolutely on it. Small mistake like that, and Gasly's already now a second away from us. It really is that fine, and it's that competitive right now in this Season 6 of ours, as Leclerc looks to try and get a hold of control of this race. But, even this, we'll recompose, we'll come back, but this is a very good place to be already, early doors in this race, and we're already able to look at our two championship rivals. I was kind of fearing we'd get stuck behind the likes of Verstappen, but not the case, and instead now we're watching a titanic battle going on between Gasly and Leclerc. Gasly the long way round at turn 1, they make some contact, and Leclerc has to give up the position, and Gasly has taken the race lead. Leclerc down to P2. He did so well off the line, but now he's looking a bit slow there, and Gasly is looking supreme in this race, having obviously had a great few opening laps there, kind of soaked up the pressure from ourselves early doors lap number 3, and now he's trying to waltz away, and we're trying to waltz past Leclerc if we can in the Ferrari, both of us with DRS, but we've got the overspeed there with ERS deploying all the way down that straight, round the outside, bit wide there on the AstroTurf, and Leclerc comes back. We're very wide with a lot of understeer, and Leclerc actually has a fantastic left-hander, just gets a brilliant exit and is able to just sail back round out of the outside of us. So fair play, have to go again. I thought we actually got that done and dusted, but exiting turn 1, the understeer that we did have a bit of in qualifying just completely sideswiped us. So we're gonna have to try that overtake once again, and we might have an early opportunity to do that as we go through 130R, getting a load of speed, and we're gonna go for such a bold dive. That was so close to making some horrendous contact with Leclerc's front left tyre, and also we managed to somehow slow it down and not go completely wide on the green runoff area that is on the outside part of that chicane. And now we do some defensive work then in the next straight, and we're up into P2 then, so a bold move gets us a bold position up into P2 then for us, and this is very important because Gasly getting into first place, that's a big deal. I wouldn't have minded if Leclerc stayed in first place, because having had that DNF, he's not as much of a threat now in the championship, but with Gasly in P1, he's right there. He's only a couple of points behind us in the standings, so we need to make sure we keep the pressure on him, and now this is basically become a race for the race win, potentially. We need to try and chase after Gasly, and we're obviously going to try and fight him as much as we can, and hopefully we can close up. We're going to have to see how the next few laps go, basically. But as we go on through this first stint, we've got some action behind us then. Verstappen looking to overtake Russell. Russell's done a fantastic job, I must say. Although he looked so slow at the start, he's somehow kept ahead of Verstappen for all these laps, and only now gets overtaken by the Dutchman. So Verstappen is up into P4. Russell biding his time and trying now to keep behind Lando Norris. You've got Alexander Albon that is in the Racing Point. Stroll actually got demoted with an engine penalty. I didn't ever mention that. So Albon's actually the lead Racing Point car, and he's right there nose to tail with Norris and Russell. But obviously as the laps go on, the soft tires will wear out, so Russell may get quicker. But I just, you clearly saw that was the mistake. He tried to be too clever with going on the mediums. It just wasn't needed because the tyre wear levels aren't even that high. As we get up to lap number 9, on to 10, myself and Gasly continue on. Lap number 9 was when my engineer wanted me to pit, but we continue on. We're being inspired by Gasly continuing on by one more lap, and I'm going quicker because I've got that. I've said it before in videos. I definitely am a driver that has that thing where if I can aim for someone on circuit that's just ahead of me, I kind of get tunnel vision. I go quicker, and here you go. We've set the fast lap of the Grand Prix at the end of a soft tyre stint on heavy fuel, lap 11. It's a no-brainer to go again. We are a little bit slower on our eventual in-lap on lap number 11 to 12, but we've already done the work of going and setting a purple lap time on the previous one, and even though we were red in the first two sectors, we didn't lose that much time. It was only maybe about half a tenth here and there, a tenth maximum, so we've already done some great work of this overcut strategy, and now you can see we have gone very bold forget the hard tyres. We've gone to the mediums here, and as we come out the pit lane, this is going to be very, very close to Pierre Gasly. Here comes the Frenchman round the outside. He just about manages to hang on to what is effectively the race lead, because Russell's in P1 right now, and he's yet to pit in this Grand Prix. But here we are then, right up behind Gasly on fresher, softer compounded tyres, and the reason why we've gone bold, it may seem a bit crazy because the strategy window did not account for us going on mediums to the end. But you've got to remember, there is some rain on the way. I'm just going to hope it comes a bit earlier for me to help me out here, but it is a bit of a risk, I will admit, but we've gone for it, we've sent it, and we're going to see how this works out. We're racing Gasly here, one of our direct championship rivals, for the race win. We may as well go for broke, because damage limitation right now is not even something that's coming into my mind. I just want to try and go for this race win and actually get the victory for one, but also secure more points over him and not lose 7 points by coming second to his first place. So here we go then, DRS open, lap number 13, and Gasly gives us a bit of a squeeze, but we're able to shoot past him then just before we have to start braking, thankfully, on the inside, and we're up into now what is actually first place on the road as well, because Russell has now come in as well. But this is where it gets interesting, because already my engineer actually told me on that previous lap through Spoon Curves that the rain is on the way in a few minutes time, so it's only going to get darker and darker. And so here we are then, lap number 17, and it is really a stark contrast in terms of lighting here, and it's looking very doom and gloom. And there's already a bit of rain out there here on the circuit, and you can see a little bit of understeer creeping in as well up the hill as the track temperatures are also plummeting. But the rain's coming in, it's kind of weird, it's very localized, it's coming in on the back straight, so you can't really see it yet on the chassis as we lose the back end, and my life has just flashed before my eyes because we really held that quite well. That could have been quite nasty as we came off that curb so quickly, but somehow just managed to hold it. But Gasly's right on the back of us now, and the difference in tyre compound really hardly means much now in these sort of conditions where the track temps are colder and you're having that slight bit of dampness coming in on the curbs, on the kind of corner exit, and the sheen is starting to slowly build up on the circuit. But Gasly going for a move, and we've seen how quick that Mercedes car has been in a straight line, and even though I'm deploying ERS all the way down through 130R as well, he's still kept his foot in, and he's still able to give us a good run for our money into the next right-hander. So close, we brake early, go for this switch back right to left and try and get that better exit off the final corner. Doesn't quite do it. Gasly is so good in a straight line, we just can't find that extra tenth we need to pull alongside, but we go for the bold late brake lunge on the outside, give him some room though equally as well, and we're back up into first place. But what a scrap that was, with Gasly all the way through 130R into the last chicane, and meanwhile behind, the fight for P3 and 4 is on, and this was actually a replay. This is at the same time as me fighting Gasly. This was Leclerc overtaking, you can see there on the left hand side, I overtook Gasly into turn 1, and Leclerc did the same thing to Russell there. So after looking a little bit slower initially, Leclerc speeding back up in this race, and he set the fast up the Grand Prix now, as we go defensive into turn 1 on the Frenchman, and yet again have to really fight for our first place here. But the rain is now very much falling, you can see the sheen, the shine on the circuit, and Leclerc is using this to advantage. The Ferraris come alive in these cold conditions, and we're still now battling Gasly, and now you can see the droplets of rain coming down the halo, coming down the chassis, giving him the space on the inside. They're having to lift off because I'm not too sure now the downforce levels. Gasly with a big lock up there, and we're able to keep it side by side due to that horrendous mistake from him, and we actually get a beautiful exit. So obviously it's great to see AI mistakes, you don't see it too often though, but that was a big one from Gasly that really hurt his chances, so much so that now Leclerc is actually attacking him, and the Ferrari just about can't make the move, but it won't matter, he'll have another chance, and we go through Spoon Curves, and you can just see how much we're struggling with the understeer. But Gasly's struggling even more, because look in the background of us, and Leclerc goes for the move. We look back to our POV, and I'm just looking behind me because I'm seeing Gasly and Leclerc going side by side through 130R in the mirrors. That is a great little scrap between those two, down into the chicane. It's so wet, and we've locked up horrendously, somehow kept it on the circuit, but now look at the lack of grip on the rear end. We're squirming about, we almost squirm into the Ferrari. Gasly's back up into the lead, and now we find ourselves battling Leclerc for P2 and 3 as the rear end was just not cooperating with us. We go around the outside, they'll have to lift off. Oh, we've been hit! We've been hit! We've been hit by George Russell, and we've been hit again now by the Racing Point, and we're round. Verstappen's off. The rain is way too much for everyone. It's time for Inters, but there's so many of us out there on dry tyres. It's an absolute calamity for us, but it's equally just a bit of an iffy one for Verstappen going cleanly off the circuit there, almost hitting me. But now look at us. We are in struggle town, because not only is everyone struggling anyway with the grip of the tyres, because it's way too wet now, I've got a damaged front wing, so I've got no downforce. I mean, look at that. It's painful to watch the understeer we've got there. But let's have a look then. A bad lock-up from us, but then look how aggressive these two are. Gasly and Leclerc make some contact. Gasly's managed to drift his way around the outside of us, and then there, I could have almost ended mine and Leclerc's race there and then if I kept that spin. If we didn't manage to snap it back and keep it in a straight line, and then we moved back on board with Russell, and you're about to see here, there is the contact, and that's me spun round, and then I mean, Albon just continues his racing line. I'm still trying to catch my drift in that instance, and that's what, you know, basically just sends me into Albon and loses us the front wing ultimately. But the initial contact was all from George Russell there. We took it easy into turn one. I lifted off on purpose because I knew with the rain on the circuit, if I tried to keep my foot in with Leclerc, we would have had a crash. And then ironically, that's ended up in me having a crash with my own teammate. So in hindsight, being pushed wide and off circuit by Leclerc probably would have been a little bit better than trying to give him the room, because giving him the room meant that Russell just invited himself to dive down the inside of turn one, like you saw, made some tyre-on-tyre contact, spun me round, because you're going so quickly into turn one, and then you've got the added caveat of the track's already slippery because of the rain. That's clearly time for intermediate, so my car just went around so easily, and then I was mid-drift when Albon came along. Not his fault entirely at all, so, you know, that's just unfortunate racing incident between myself and Albon, but it's literally, honestly, the worst thing that could have happened to us, that entire situation, because it would be okay if Leclerc and Gasly weren't where they were, but at the moment as it stands, I'm pretty sure Gasly's still in P1, and Leclerc is in P2, and at the moment we're out in P12 then after such a slow pit stop, because Russell came in on this lap to go on to Inters. So not only did we have to change our front wing, we actually had to wait a few seconds for the animation to actually, you know, for our mechanics to get our stuff ready for that pit stop. And so here we are then outside the top 10. Meanwhile, we cut back to Russell, and he actually goes wide at turn one, and that's Albon who slips down the inside then with 5 laps to go in this race. Albon has just managed to slide his way up into P3. Albon knocked out in Q2 once again, showing what a great racecraft AI he is on a Sunday in this career mode of ours. And he's up into P3. Fabulous drive from him. Meanwhile, it's still Leclerc then, like I said, in P2. Gasly P1. But I gotta say, again, like in those damp conditions on the hard tyres, Leclerc is looking like the faster man here. Gasly's struggling. And here comes Leclerc then on the next lap. No DRS, just pure slipstream. But the Ferrari, oh, look at the wiggle that was there from the Ferrari as he pulled out to make the overtake. And Gasly goes wide, and Leclerc's through down the inside. He's got the move, maybe, on the outside. Yes, he does. The Ferrari up into first place. I didn't think he was going to do that. I thought it was too late. But Gasly with a bad mistake into turn one, just like Russell did, went too wide, and Leclerc has capitalised on it. And he's into first place. He's going to go on maybe to win this race, having already, you know, he was on pole position. He was leading the race at this very start of this Grand Prix. Lost out, was looking so slow in the middle, but here he is then, looking as strong as ever now once more. Really rallied back in this race basically, and Leclerc will come through to win the Japanese Grand Prix. Gasly though in second place. That's still a brilliant second for him, and that's horrendous news for myself, because that's both my championship rivals then getting very strong points hauls, 25 and 18 respectively, and I'm getting 0. This is actually the complete opposite of damage limitation. This is the worst scenario that could have happened to us. We've come away with 0, and our rivals have just scored 25 and 18, and I'm pretty sure with 3 rounds to go now, we've just lost the lead of the championship, and we might not even be in second place now, all because of that contact at turn 1.
That's it then for another fantastic Grand Prix here in Japan. A brilliant victory that has thoroughly earned the applause from the sellout crowd here today. Talk to me, Ant. What was it that set them apart from the competition today?
Well, keeping their tyre temperatures up in the tricky wet conditions was really important. There's not much grip out there at the best of times, and it's 10 times worse if you're out there on cold tyres. So the way they kept the rubber in its proper operating window was a huge advantage today.
And here we are, a team that is no stranger to the podium, taking their place on top once again. A sublime race today, and a stunning win for Ferrari.
So there you have it. Leclerc's AI does bounce back in absolute style. Agony at Singapore with the DNF, but he comes through for the win and his second win of the season here, and he joins Gasly and Ocon as repeat winners. But him getting first place, 25 points, Gasly 18 there. That's bad news for us. It's not even 25, it's 26 for Leclerc because he gets one more point for the fast lap of the Grand Prix, and with us with 0 points. This is the devastation. This is it. As I said, this is the calamity here. Coming off that, Gasly now leads the championship. 5 points back is Leclerc. So Leclerc is firmly back in the championship fight then. After I wrote him off effectively in Singapore verbally, he's right back in it. Only 5 points off Gasly, which is not a lot in this career mode series of ours. And we're actually the one with the bigger deficit because we're 11 points back from Gasly now in P3. That tiny bit of contact between Russell and myself has completely imploded our championship in terms of how comfortable we're feeling. And now I'm the one chasing 11 points with 3 rounds to go. And you've got USA, a long straight that I imagine Mercedes might be strong at. We don't know about Ferrari. Historically in Mexico, Ferrari have gone well. Leclerc has gone well at Mexico. And then Brazil, I mean, as a finale, is always very hectic. So we're on the back foot now. Somehow, out of all this, we're on the back foot. We're looking so strong. We went for such a bold strategy, and we're going positive, going for the race win, and then it's all taken away from us with a bit of contact with our teammate yet again. Wow, what a crazy episode, and that really sets up a mega last 3 episodes maybe of this season potentially. But there's massive pressure now to try and find a way back and find our feet for next time at a new circuit that we haven't been to in a while in this career series. But guys, if you did enjoy this one, smash the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do subscribe for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.